I would like to start asking, what's more expensive than doing a tech project?
Building a tech project. Completing the project.
Completing the project. So probably it's doing a bad IT project. Fixing it. And people usually don't know that. When you engage into an IT project, you're spending a lot of time, paying the bills. And you don't know until the end that if you mess up during the project, it's going to be way more expensive. So this has been around my head for around 10 years. And I realized in the last couple of years that I've been talking about this, that reality is that it's something that's been on my head for a long time. And the reason for that is the people that usually make the decisions, they don't know IT. They don't know analytics. They just don't, and they don't have to. So I've been thinking about this, and this is probably what I want to share with you guys in the next half an hour or so. So I would like to start this story. So like I said, and probably just to put an introduction, what I want to share with you guys today is my story. I want to share with you guys how I ended up having this conversation with you guys, and hopefully sharing with you guys the challenges that you might face, and some things that I've learned that might be valuable, and some things that don't. So my story actually started in the academic world. I was meant to do a PhD. I was actually meant to do a PhD in energy efficiency. I went through electrical engineer, and when I was doing that, my mentor, she sent me to a master's degree. That's the way that it was. She sent me. It was like that. I would hope that it wasn't, but it was. And when I came back, she helped me out with her other professors, and I was meant to go to Berkeley to do a PhD in energy efficiency. One day she called me to her office and said, "I'm going to fire you." And I was like, "But we love each other. You send me and I do stuff." And she was like, "No, you are not meant to do a PhD." That was really bad. Actually, probably was the best thing that happened. I still talk to her. I love her. She loves me. It's probably one of the most important people in my life. But what's important about that is the kind of relation that you develop when you work with a PhD. This is a person that it's very smart. It's incredibly smart, but it's highly focused and it's very specific. When you are on the other side, you're 20, 22, you don't know a lot of stuff, but they made you believe that you do. They're all the time giving you issues, giving you problems, bringing you challenges, helping you out of the challenge. So in that aspect, in the more intellectual part of my life, I was really happy because I was all the time talking with very smart people, and I thought that I was part not only of the problem, but part of the solution. So in that moment, things changed, and I moved into a more corporate world. I did that for a long time. I worked in the insurance industry, I worked in the communication industry, in the banking industry. I did a lot of consultancy, as some of us have. And what I realized in that world is that I was not part, even though I was part of the clock, I didn't know what was my reason for doing stuff. I remember I was involved in projects that seemed to be very important, but I don't know what I was doing. Sometimes I thought that I was not bringing any value. So I think that was the first moment that I said, hey, something is wrong here, because I spend a lot of time and I don't bring value. At the time, it was me against the world. I was thinking everyone has a problem, they do not understand me, I'm the smartest guy in the room, and they really don't understand me. So I need to get out of here. I need to go to a place where my voice is heard. So I make a different change, and the last couple of years, I decided to move into smaller companies. So the first thing that I did, I moved into a startup, I moved into the whole entrepreneur, and I started helping small, medium companies as a board member. And at that moment, I realized something different. I realized that usually small companies, people that manage these companies are really lonely. So when you are in this corporate world, reality is that you have a lot of really smart people. People that know what they're doing. They have been 10, 20, 30 years working 50, 60 hours a week, and they have a lot of knowledge. So first time that I'm going to say it, hey, maybe I was wrong. People are really smart. It was me that I was not prepared for that. But now I realize that usually when you are in a small company, you only have one or two people that are doing everything. They're deciding at what time people come in, they're deciding the P&L, they're deciding the strategic vision, they're figuring out everything. And that's really hard to do. And something that is really hard when you're on the other side is that you're trying to explain something to someone that usually has 100 people or 50 people that he's like God. I remember a couple of years ago, I started helping this company. They're doing really, really good. They work with Tesla. So as Tesla grow, they grow. And I remember that they called me in because they wanted to do some sort of project. It's not what I do. Like I said, I usually jump in as a board member. And when I start talking to the people, they start talking about Don Gabriel. Okay, so I went to accounting, and they were said like, hey, the way that we do our billing was said by Don Gabriel. Okay, probably it's a company. After 6-7 conversations with human resources, with operations, with IT, even engineering, everyone was talking about Don Gabriel. And I realized he was the founder. And I realized that everything that he did was amazing. You cannot imagine the level of things that this guy did. He was like in his late 70s, he learned how to do Python coding. He was doing it by himself. He was doing stuff that a lot of the people should not be doing. But imagine, Don Gabriel died. So now they had a problem. They didn't know what to do. So we were figuring out how we change a culture where you're basically depending on one person. And I faced that for a long time and trying to convince people that are being successful that maybe they do need help. So at this moment, what I want to try to share with you is, so I started in the accounting world thinking that, hey, I'm too good for this. Then I went to corporates thinking, hey, everyone should hear my voice. Now I was in this smaller company saying, hey, people need my help. And actually, like a year ago, I was having a conference similar to this one, and I heard, and we were talking about how much people and how much companies and how much owners spend on IT. And we're thinking, and actually what we were saying, it was more senior people at the time, we were saying, hey, actually owners care about IT. They do want to do innovation. They want to do things. They want to try new stuff. And someone who was probably mid-20s were saying that, and his comment, it was virtual, was, that's the reason why IT doesn't prosper. Because of senior guys like you, that you guys don't make us look right. You don't look that actually we do a lot of work and we are the cornerstone of what we do, and companies work because of IT. At that moment, even though we continue talking, I said, oh my God, I am the problem. I am that guy. I have been this guy for 20 plus years thinking that everyone else is the problem. And in reality, there was a click in my head. The problem is us. The reason why we cannot talk with our C-level is not because our C-level doesn't care, because they're not going to care more, because they have other objectives. Their objective is to have a vision. Their objective is to understand the company. Their objective is to collect money. They have other objectives, and we have our objective. So it's more about us making a change, because if we expect that the world change around us, it's not going to happen. So what I've been trying to do in the last couple of years, 3 years, it's forget that everything else is the problem and try to become part of the solution. And probably that sounds really dull, and it is. It's as simple as that. If you spend more time trying to understand why people are trying to move the wheel and why they're moving the wheel, instead of spending time thinking that they don't know what they're doing, that they should be spending more money on you, that they should be doing things differently, you'll never help them to move the wheel, because you will be pushing, not pulling. So that's what I've been trying to do in the last couple of years. Said that, it doesn't mean that it's not a problem harder than this one. Why? Because companies faces problems, the C-level faces problems, and IT faces some problems. So the first problem that you have is usually your company, they have a very, very, very big issue, which is how do I balance between short-term problems and long-term problems. Probably when they have this conversation Saturday night with their friends, They're thinking about what's going to happen 20 years from now. I remember this story. It's more of a joke, but there was this president in Colombia. I'm not going to say the name because probably some of you guys are Colombian and I don't want to get political. But this guy had a lot of issues during his time in the presidency. And the story goes that one day, his wife, like he was supposed to have a good time, like 6 months that he was going to be able to do something. And her wife goes to him and says, so now you're going to fix what you want to fix, which is the health of kids. This is actually a true story. This was told to me by actually an ex-president. And he went really happy and he thought that he was going to fix Young's health. The moment that he arrived into the first meeting, he was with the general, and the general said, a big mafia lord just escaped out of prison. It was not Pablo Escobar, it was later from that. And he was like, I don't care. I'm going to worry about health. So, Mr. General, do your thing. He went into the next meeting with labor, and labor said, Mr. President, we're having an issue because X guy just escaped from prison. And he was like, I don't care. Don't worry about labor. Just do your job. I don't want to get into the story longer, but at the end of the day, when he came back to his place, her wife was like, hey, how's the health of kids? And he was like, X escaped from prison. So reality is that when you are part of the C-level, many times, even though you have a long-term vision, you have to worry about what's happening today. Because if you're not getting collections, if you're not billing, if you're not fixing the problems that you have today, there's not a tomorrow. So that's one of the problems that company has. The second one, it's innovation. When and why and at what point makes sense to innovate. Innovation, it's expensive, and you want to get money out of innovation. So how much do you innovate? How much do you spend in order to do that? And that's really hard to establish. So that's probably, and I don't want to, there's hundreds of problems that companies face, but just thinking about how we as CTOs, CIOs, as that person in the C-level, we can make a change, that's probably one of the biggest challenges that we face. When we want to do a tech project, the first thing that probably we're going to say, it's going to take years. If you want to do AI, probably you first have to ask yourself, is your company digital enough to do AI? And that makes it not a 1-year project, makes it a 10-year project. So that makes it a really hard problem. So short-term versus long-term. And innovation, how much is this going to cost? I think 4 people, what can you do with 1? So I remember when I joined my current company and I was doing, it was probably not my last interview, but I was speaking with the board and they told me, how much is this going to cost? They were thinking about a project, was digitalization of the company was a big thing. And I said, you know, I think it's going to be around 10 mil and it's going to be 4 years. And they were like, great, you have 1 million and 3 months. What are you going to do? Come back in 3 months and ask for some more money because it's going to cost 10 million. It's going to be what it is. And I remember 3 years later when we were on 10 million, the owner came in and said, you owe me 10 million. I said, no, I told you 3 years ago that it's going to be 10 million. You make the decision. You didn't want to hear me. And probably it was because of me that I didn't want to explain it. So knowing how much I'm going to spend and how much I'm going to know in innovation, it's a problem. Now you have the C-level challenges. The first one, and probably it's the most common one, communication gaps. If you really think that being technical, you'll be able to speak with human resources, it's not going to happen. You have different agendas. Usually everyone on the C-level has an agenda. That's not a problem. People on the C-level have an agenda. They're going to have an agenda, and they will continue to have an agenda. That's their job, having an agenda, trying to make that agenda work. So you'll have communication gaps. And second, how do you align each of these agendas to the business? Everyone is trying to push in order to get something. Everyone is trying to make something happen. So that's something that is really important at the C-level. And finally, let's talk about some of our challenges. The first one, and I'll start with cybersecurity. It's not actually cybersecurity. I don't want you to think that this is or not is a big problem. For me, it's more firefighting. When do you think that CEOs care about cybersecurity?
There's a problem.
There's a problem. That's it. And that's really sad. Because you can come in and you can spend thousands of hours thinking how to face those threats, and you try to explain it to him. You even buy nice food and you try to do your best and you start playing golf because you want to spend some time with him. He doesn't care. Now, the day that someone says, not even real, that someone says that your data was breached, you're going to get a phone call, and everything that you told him to do and he didn't do, it's going to be on you. So what I'm trying to say here is firefighting, it's a problem. Because of what we do, we're technical people, and maybe some of us are not as much because we're moving more towards that C-level. We are the only guys on that table that worry about firefighting. And that's a problem. Because that's exactly what the CEO doesn't like. They don't like the firefighters. They only like the firefighters when there's fire. So that's a challenge that we have. All the time we're trying and we're thinking and we're pulling forward people understanding why operations is so important, and they really don't care. Second, team management. I don't know how many of you guys already, probably most of you are managers or C-levels, but how hard is to manage a developer?
It's kindergarten.
It's kindergarten. And they are the smartest guys in the room, always, even if all of them are tech guys. And if you do a project and you change the tech leader, what's the first thing that the tech leader is going to tell you?
Everything's broken.
Last guy, it's a dumb guy. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'll have to do everything from scratch. It's really hard. And like I like to say, they're the modern carpenters. Most of the projects is the first time that they do it, and when you ask them how long it's going to take, they're going to say, "Oh, it's going to be a lot of work." How do you go back to someone who doesn't care, who's just paying the bill, and tell him, "You know, I don't know how long it's going to take, but trust me, it's going to be less than you think, and it's going to cost you more than you expect. But don't worry, trust me." So it's really, really hard, and that's the problem that we face. So I remember having this conversation. I have a really good friend that just started a strategic job in a really, really big company, and he called me on the phone and said, "You know, I really need to go. I really need to kill you." And I was like, "Why?" "Because I want to kill my CTO, but I cannot do that because I just started here and, well, I have to be political." And I was like, "Yeah, call me." And he started telling me how his CTO changed something, some permissions or something on Microsoft, and because of that, no one was being able to work. It was more a support thing rather than development. And I wanted to say, "Hey, stop. You can nag all you want, and I'll hear you because I love you, but let's have a different conversation. From 1 to 10, how tech savvy are you compared to the average of the company?" And he said, "Am I 9? And everyone, average company, it's a 1. And I was like, "I agree with you. You know how to install an app. You know how to open a PDF. Yeah, compared to the 90% of the company, you're really strong. People usually don't know how to do that stuff." Now let me ask you a second question. Between you and I, how tech savvy am I compared to you? I says, no, you're a 10 and I'm a 1. Because you know AI, and every time that I want to say something cool, you know about that. Okay, thanks. Now let's go to my team. Between my team and myself, how tech savvy do you think that I am? And he said, "You're probably an 11 and they're a 9. And I was like, no. I'm probably a 1 and they are a 10. Because I'm not tech anymore. The last time that I code was like 10 years ago. So when I look at code, it's starting to be confusing, to be honest. It was a long time ago. I stopped coding more years ago than the time that I actually code. And the last thing that I code was on R. So it's totally different. Things change a lot. So the reason for my story is that when we have this problem is we want to manage teams that are different. Exactly the same thing that a previous tech could do. Probably 5, 6, 10, 20? How many libraries Google is just putting on us every day? Hundreds? So this is moving way too fast. And if I'm making an investment that I want to get my money back, that's a problem. Now, if I go back and say, hey, you know, I'm on Pascal and I'm moving out of Pascal. That's my coding. That's my language. And everything that comes after that, I'm just going to close my eyes because that's what should happen. Well, what's going to happen? What happened to the banking industry in the beginning of the 2000s? They didn't have a system that could manage all the data they have. And that's why they have to move to probably most of the solutions that you guys have heard. Most of those banks still work on AS400. And now they have things on top of that, and they have a lot of middleware, and they have a lot of things. But at the end, it was really, really, really hard to move out of that box because it was way too spaghetti. It was way too Frankenstein. So we have that problem whether, yes, I want to make my investment profitable, but on the other hand, things are happening so fast for a reason. There's many of things that are happening that actually are great. So we do have those challenges. So said that, some things that we should try to do and some things that we should not do. So let's start with the same thing. Let's start with collaboration. Even though we don't like it, even though we think that 60-70% of those conversations won't bring you any value, that's our job. So do it. Have those conversations, bridge the gap, spend time with human resources, spend time with finance, see how you can help them. Remember, for them, it's a challenge to open a PDF. So maybe open the PDF for them. That's going to bring value. They're going to understand, and they're going to open the doors that really matter, the conversations that really matter. And second, believe that they have something to bring to the table. We don't know everything. We might know code, but that's what we know. But they know the business, they know people, they know numbers. So include them in your projects. Even if it looks that it's going to take a week more, a couple of weeks more, believe me, when you are at 60-70% of the problem and you realize that someone goes to you and says, oh, I forgot to tell you X or Y, it's going to take a long time. That's what I always try to explain. If you ask me to build a house, and when I'm 60% of the house, you come to me and say, you know, it shouldn't be 20 floors. It should be 25. Can you put 5 floors on top of those 20? No, I can't. I have to demolish the whole thing and build it from scratch. So it costs a lot to make mistakes. So those 2 weeks make a lot of sense. If you do have those partners, make a lot of sense. Second, and even those, continue learning. I remember a couple of years ago, I did help La Universidad de los Andes in Colombia had a new analytics master's degree like 7 years ago. I helped building that, and one of the classes that I was giving, I was not giving the class, but I was having like these spaces very similar to these that I was talking to the students about executives, tech executives. And I remember that I put in a slide that had like 100 different names, and it was different technologies. At the time it was MapReduce, R, Python, blah, 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 blah. And what I was trying to tell to them is that the amount of information that we need to gather, that our tech people need to gather, is gigantic. So we cannot stop learning. Third, have a strategic vision. Again, companies, even though they will ask us to be the firefighter, try to avoid being the firefighter. Try to align your business goals. Try to understand why your company owner or your CEO is asking for something. There is a reason. Maybe there's not a technical reason. Maybe you're lucky enough and your CEO is a tech guy, but even if he's a tech guy, eventually his reasons are not going to be technical. So align yourself to those goals. And probably and most important, and probably you have said this, if not, you're going to say it sometime in your life, resources are not infinite. So make sure that you prioritize what you do, and make sure that you explain why you have to do that. It's not having the third conversation, and let me explain that. Sometimes when I'm having a specific project, I know that it's not going to work, not because of this first iteration, the second iteration, but I know that maybe the first couple of months will work, but the third month something wrong will happen. So I start having the third conversation, and I didn't even have the first conversation. Oh, this is not going to work. Why? You don't understand me. It's not going to work. Have those conversations. Walk people through what you're thinking. And at the end, explain to them why you have to prioritize. And finally, and probably this is the hardest one for us, or at least from what I believe from our cluster, like I like to call ourselves, you have to make sure that your communication is effective. That's probably the hardest thing to do. Something that we do because of how we were trained, and I'm putting all of us in the same picture. If I'm doing something wrong, please forgive me, is when we are having an argument, the way that we win that argument is by being technical. So if I'm having a conversation about how important it's billing, and I bring in middleware and a couple of crazy tech worlds in the middle, the person on the other side is going to say, oh, this guy is getting way too technical, I'm going to fight him. It doesn't mean that you won the conversation. It means that he doesn't know how to fight you. So that's not actually winning the fight. It's just not having a fight. And I'm not talking about having a fight, but having that conversation. So you have to make sure that you are effective. You have to make sure that you use it's like if you go to the doctor and he starts saying crazy medical words to you. It's going to get confusing. And the doctor will leave the room saying, oh, I'm way too smart. I'm a doctor and he's not. That's not the objective. The objective is for you to know if you're going to die and if there's a solution for that. So it's exactly the same deal. Make sure that whatever you're saying, make sure that people understand you. And believe me, 90% of the time, they don't. It's not that they don't want to understand you. It's what we're saying, it's way too technical for them. So try to simplify concepts. And probably in this one, I remember having one of the first conversations with my dad when I started working, and one day I came in and said, so now we're really mature and my company wants to make decisions based on data. My dad is 75, and he went back and said, we have been trying to do this since ever. We have been trying to do since the 50s. The thing is that we didn't have computers at the time, but we were inputting data on a piece of paper, and from always, people have been trying to make decisions out of data. It's not new. We changed the name, McKinsey changed the name, and we tried again. But reality is that it's what executives have been trying to do for a long time. And hopefully that happens. And it's going to be really, really, really hard that happens. But what's true is, where can we help? Make sure that whatever you say, your reports are transparent. People, and believe me, at some point, you did change a number, so people understand. No, be transparent. Try to explain why you're sending the numbers that you're sending. Now, let's go some things that you should not do. So the first one, I'll go back to the firefighter. Firefighters tend to be in their firehouse by themselves. They're training, they're spending a lot of time. I know this because I have a couple of very senior guys that when I bring a problem, they disappear. And everyone thinks that they're having a party. They think that they're doing something crazy. And reality is they're working. And they're working 23 hours an hour. I know that. I know that sometimes they go, Edgar, we need to do a hackathon. And they figured that out a couple of times. And what they do is, we get an Airbnb, I close the door, I lock the door, I send them pizza once in a while, and until they fix it, I open the door back. And it's not me, it's not like I'm a really bad boss. They ask for that, they like that, they enjoy that. But when I go back to the company, everyone thinks that they're having a party. Everyone thinks that they didn't do anything because it was an easy problem. Why they're spending 3 weeks in something as easy as what I'm explaining to you in a couple of minutes. So don't isolate. The problem is, try to explain that these things are happening. For the example, when I go and tell my CEO, we are on a hackathon, he goes everywhere. We are on a hackathon. It seems like he's the one that's over there. He learned that it's really important. And I send pictures and I do stuff so they know that we are not sleeping for our company. We are doing the job. We are working for you. So that's really important. Make sure that you're visible. Try to move yourself out of the fire. Try to move yourself out of the operation. Try to put yourself into innovation. Try to understand what's the problem. What's that thing that someone needs to fix? Don't be the operations guy. You have to be that 80% of the time. But make sure that that 20% matters. Second, sorry, I didn't put the last version. Do not resist change. It's like the train. It's like the Indians and the train. If the train is coming, it's coming. Don't stop it. So if someone has a great idea, if someone from the C-level knows that something's going to happen and something's going to change, listen. Be part of the change. Embrace the change. Embrace innovation and, of course, lead that change. That's really important. At the end, and even though that I told you that I thought that I was the smartest guy in the room and then I realized that I wasn't, let's be honest, probably most of you guys are. That's the reality. If you go back to high school, middle school, probably the smartest guys are the ones that ended up in IT. It's not that they're the richest ones. It's not that they have the most prettiest partners, but probably they were really smart. So they are really smart people. They are. We are. But we have to make sure that we are leading that. We have to make sure that when we say something smart, people understand that we're trying to lead that innovation, that we're trying to lead that strategy. I say it all the time with my boss. He has great ideas, he has great vision, but he doesn't know how to execute. That's not what he does. I spend a lot of time trying to fight him, asking him to be more operational. That was my mistake, not his mistake. We moved besides that a couple of years ago, and we understood that that's my job. I'm the one that's not going to sleep, and that's okay. But I need him for other things. I need him to pave the way. I need him when we have the hard conversations with our stakeholders. He's going to do that. He's going to give me time to do stuff. But I won't be doing whatever I want. I won't be rebuilding whatever I want. I'll be leading that strategy that we build together. And that's really important. And finally, I'll go back to the same thing, and this is really hard to say. Do not neglect operations. Why? And this might sound totally against what I'm saying. It's because the moment that you have a problem, the moment that there's fire, you're done. It doesn't matter how good you have been in the last 3 months, how many cool conversations, how often they've been. If you get that cybersecurity threat, you're done. So you have to make sure that you are, and you do understand risk. The only way to face those problems is not by spending a lot of money. I do believe that risk management, it's a great way to do it, but if you want to go into that path, you have to explain people what it's CRM. Banks are really good at it. I don't think industry companies are so good at it, so that could be a way to do it. So avoid those fires. At the end, and let's be honest, 95% of the time, those fires are really, really easy to avoid. If something really, really bad happens, people will understand. But many of those fires, and I'll say it again, people will understand. That's something I probably didn't say. And I'll say it again, people will understand. Many times we have a problem, it's all over our head, we don't spend the time talking, explaining what happened, and we think that we're fighting everyone, and we're not. Sometimes they even want to help us. It's just they don't understand. So they will understand. Try to avoid those crashes. They can come in cybersecurity. It could be privacy. It could be IT support. I've been having a 1-week fight because a new analyst in Dallas hasn't received his laptop. It's a very, very stupid problem. But it's been my biggest problem the last week. A laptop for a junior analyst. And all the conversations that, oh, I cannot go to Best Buy and buy the computer. Well, I've explained that to you. And again, the same issue and the same problems. So we're almost finished here. I guess we'll have some minutes for questions, but I just want to leave you with a key takeaway. Really important, understand your value. We do have value. We do have very smart things to say. It's just to make sure that we can make sure that people understand that. I'm not going to read it, but like I said, make sure that you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. Be a great listener. Try to avoid crashes. And to be honest, read it yourself because I don't want to read. I think that's it. Like I said, I wanted to share more of my story. It's something that I've been being challenged for many years. Like I said at the beginning, I thought the problem was everyone else. It's not. It's how we evolve and how we help people to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And yeah, I guess I wanted to share that with you guys. I'm pretty sure that most of us share the same challenges. I did see it on your faces. Many of the things that I've said, you were like, yeah, that happened to me as well. So don't feel alone. Look for help. There's many of people that we do have the same problems, and there's a lot of people that want to help. There's people that don't. There's people that just want to sell you something. But believe me, there's people that want to help. So look for that help and make it happen. Because at the end, yes, it's very expensive to do IT. It's more expensive to do bad IT. And IT, I mean AI, analytic models, data science, whatever you want to call it, even though they're different things. But if you are capable of moving at the speed of the wheel, you'll get value. It's really hard, but you'll get value. So that's it. I don't know if you have any questions. Thanks for hearing me out. And well, happy to talk to you guys in a couple of minutes.